bono philosophy. I'm so grateful to be here. I'm getting over a cold, you have to forgive. I'm a tiny bit husky, but maybe it'll work. We'll find out.
We love it. It adds some mystique.
Well, this is just gratitude and joy, like Allison said, for the community. It feels good to be here tonight. All right, the first poem I'm going to read is from These Are a Few of My Least Favorite Things. Thank you. I like it. I don't think any poets know how to work mic stands.
They do not.
Just consistently. The first poem I'm going to read is called Epigenetics. Jennifer Connelly said it in The Labyrinth. It's not fair. But when she sold her soul for powdered dopamine in Requiem for a Dream, we forgot that little girl, so enamored with David Bowie's codpiece, who really did not understand a thing about unfair. They say Holocaust survivors have DNA permanently altered by trauma, that their grandchildren's genes bear this damage, this evolutionary hiccup, the very blueprint of life irrevocably marred, even generations later, by the evil in this world. My own children, playing happily on the floor, is their DNA free from evidence of my childhood suffering? Intergenerational trauma stopped in its tracks? Or did the CPTSD warp my genes so much that my great-great-great-grandchildren will house these blemished double helixes like a scar? It's not fair that innocence is soiled before it has a chance to be. And it's not fair that I was abused when I should have been allowed to grow. And it's not fair that David Bowie died when there is no way he was ready. But existence is still a marvel, and my children are a gift. To find joy, to feel ecstasy in light of all that is unjust, is a life well lived. And this will not end with a requiem, because our song is an anthem. Thank you. All right, moving on. The next one I'm going to read is called On Hedonism and the Noble Truth of DACA. And this starts with a quote. All I teach is suffering and the end of suffering. Buddha, 589 before Common Era. Now, I'm certainly not saying that I'm just as enlightened as Buddha beneath the Bodhi tree. It's not like my inner monologue will ever construct the foundation of the world's 5th largest religion. But I have a fair bit of experience with the process of suffering, and I've come up with a few noble truths of my own. You see, Buddha said life is dukkha, and my friends, he got that fucking right. Because pain and sorrow and disease and despair and everything else that word entails used to surround me like old friends. Because there were so many years of darkness before I managed to get well. To suffer is to live, and to live we must suffer. But Buddha also said there is a way to end this dukkha. Buddha said the entire point of it all is to reduce suffering in this world. Now, I used to be battered by waves of existential pain, but I've learned things can be so good when you make it to the other side. Because it was pleasure that saved my life when I was too tormented to endure, and it was excess that kept me alive when my brain had other plans. So as I reflect upon the noble truths which construct my own ethos in this life, I cannot help but ask, what is so fucking terrible about becoming a full-blown hedonist like I've turned out to be? got 3 more. This one, I beg your pardon? I missed it. Moving on. I have 3 more. It's going to go happy by the end, but this one has a content warning for eating disorders. So if that is triggering to anyone, please be mindful. This is called I Fucked Up My Metabolism, and Now I Have Regrets. A long time ago, when adults knew all, and I thought the police could do no wrong, and the world was fair, and everything always turned out just fine, before I learned the Cartesian truth that I think, therefore I suffer. A long time ago, 5 presidents, 3 popes, 16 Olympiads come and gone, hundreds of ballet classes, 3 dead cats, a childhood, a lifetime, before I learned to manage all of my torments. A long time ago, I wanted to be thin. But that's a lie. I didn't want to be thin. I wanted to become thin. I learned the power of emptiness, the allure of martyrdom, the holiness of deprivation, the euphoria of control, self-denial as flagellation, and an addiction to less. But that's a lie. I didn't want less. I wanted to become less. A long time ago, my body gave up. Exhausted, unkempt, weary, aching, dying, crumbling under the pressure and depleted from the effort of keeping me alive. The battle between willpower and the will to survive. A long time ago, it stopped even trying and just waited for nothingness. But that's a lie. I didn't want nothingness. I wanted to become nothingness. Survival instinct abandoned, heartbeat struggling, fuel tank filled with noxious fumes, and my metabolic system fucked. Cellular processes shutting down because of my compulsion to shrink. But that's a lie. I didn't want to be smaller. I wanted to become smaller. A long time ago, part of my brain forgot how to work. Food and energy and calories and dysmorphia, mirrors and scales and Diet Coke and baby weight, a twisted labyrinth, a jumble of dysfunction, the fear that my children are doomed. A long time ago, I fucked up my metabolism. And now when I dress or change or shower or fuck, when I see my reflection, when I try to lose weight, when I remember with grief how I used to be thin, I have regrets. Thank you. Happier, because life is awesome, and poetry is awesome, and every new day is a chance to turn it all around. So this is an ode. It's called, I don't need to explain after the title, John. Philadelphia, the city of love between brothers and that famous broken bell, where you defend to the death the parking spot you dug from the snow. Snow dingy under the neon lights thrown by Starbucks, your spot claimed with a charmingly anachronistic lawn chair, and your poor neighbor be damned. Legendary sports ball fans, we Philadelphians are renowned for such illustrious acts as pelting Santa Claus with half-eaten hoagies and decapitating Hitchbot, the hitchhiking robot, way back in 2015. The number of residents living in poverty is twice the national average. The cavernous schism between the haves and the have-nots vivisects my fair city like a blade. Philadelphia, an amalgamation of culture and tradition, the entire metropolis built and powered by immigrants, a phenomenological melting pot, a mix of the lived experience of millions of souls, stretching back for centuries to the infancy of the nation, back to a time when we built the streets by hand, and then never upgraded them for some unknowable reason. Philadelphia. This city is shrouded with all kinds of darkness. This city is redeemed by a multitude of light. And if there is one redemptive feature, one overarching quality we can call our own, it is employing John as noun, verb, and adjective to describe literally everything just mentioned above. I've got one more, and then I believe Janie is up, and I'm so excited to hear what she has to say. But first I'm gonna rant a little bit, and I'm guessing everyone in this room will agree with like at least 3/5 of this. It's called I Blame George Balanchine. I blame George Balanchine for decades upon decades of the most vicious kinds of eating disorders, for veneration of the waif at the expense of growing old, for the toxicity and abuse that defines professional ballet, and the pervasive legacy of exclusion that still persists to this day. I blame St. Augustine for the devaluation of women and the marriage of church and state, for back alley abortions and unresearched stem cells, for the stigma of sex just for the sake of sex, and the pervasive legacy of judgment that still persists to this day. I blame Nancy Reagan for propagating systemic racism as the face of the war on drugs, for equating addiction with weakness of character, for commanding us all to just say no as crack ravaged the Black community, and the pervasive legacy of an epidemic that still persists to this day. I blame Donald Trump for his epidemiological illiteracy and killing 1 million Americans, for misogyny and bigotry and prejudice and hate, because he is just the worst kind of person, for humiliating our nation on a geopolitical scale, and the pervasive legacy of intolerance that still persists to this day. I blame them all for the damage they've caused and for reinforcing the otherhood of people like me. And if you agree with anything they have to say, then I fucking blame you too.
Yeah.